Hi, it's Eric Topol from Ground Truth, and I've got an amazing couple with me today. It's Will Flanary and Kristin Flanary, the Glaucomfleckens.
You did
And
it.
I've had the chance to get to know them a bit through Knock Knock Hi, which is their podcast. And of course, everyone knows Dr. Glaucomflecken from his TikTok world and his
Mm.
other about 4 million followers on Instagram and Twitter and all these other social media, YouTube. So, welcome.
Thanks for having
Thank
us.
you. Happy to be here.
Yeah,
I
well,
got
this is gonna be fun because I'm gonna kind of go a quick background so we can go fast forward because we did an interview back in early 22,
Yes.
and what you've been doing since then is like rocking it. You're like a meteoric rise, and it was predictable because it's like rarefied talent, and who couldn't love humor, medical humor? But by way of background, just for those who are not up to speed, I guess you got your start, Will, as a class
Mm.
clown when your mother wrote you up as a
Yep,
teacher in the sixth grade.
yep. I misbehaved a little bit. It helped that I still made good grades, but I cut up a bit in class. So
And then you were already in the comedy club circuits doing stand up in Houston as a 18
yep,
year old.
yeah, it was all amateur stuff. Nothing, just dabbling in it and trying to get better. I was always kind of naturally funny, just with my friend group and everything. I love making people laugh. But doing stand up's a whole different ball game. And so I started doing that around Houston, yeah, as a high school senior, and kept that going through college and a little bit into med school.
Houston was a good training ground, right? Because isn't that where Harris Whittles was also coming up
Oh,
and
there's
working
lots
on
of
his?
yeah, a lot of famous comedians have come through Houston.
Mhm.
So I've been going back to Bill Hicks back in the what was that, the 80s, I think, or 90s.
Well, and then of course, it was I think in 2020 when you launched Dr. Glaucomflecken.
Yeah.
I think is that right?
It That's when it really started to take off. I was on Twitter telling jokes back in 2016. And
Well, and
then
Gomer blog before that. That's actually
yeah.
where it was born.
Yeah, I was doing like satire writing. Like I basically do what I'm doing now, but in like article form, trying to be the Onion of medicine. And then the pandemic hit, started doing video content, and that's really, with lockdown, that's when, because everybody was on social media, right? Nobody had anything else to do. So so it was a right place, right time for me, and branching out into video content.
All right, so that's the background of some incredible foundation for humor. But
Mm.
since we last got together, I'll link the Medicine and Machine um, interview we did back then. What has been happening with you two is nothing short of incredible. So I saw your graduation speeches, Will.
Mm.
Yale 2022. I watched
Mhm.
the UCSF in 2023, and then the Michigan one in 2024. Maybe there's other ones. I don't even know.
There's a few others.
There's a
Yeah.
few, but I feel like, I mean, you've done, I'm sure, your fair share of commencement addresses as well. It's kind of hard to like come up with different ways to be like inspirational to the next gen. So, fortunately, we have some life experiences, and learned a thing or two by doing all of this social media stuff, and just the things we've been through, that I guess I have enough things to say to entertain an
Well, you're
interest.
being humble as usual, but having watched those commencement addresses, they were the best medical commencement addresses I've ever seen.
Ah,
And even
that's
even though you might have told us some of the same jokes, they were so great that it was all right. Um, yeah, and you know
I
what's
appreciate
great
that.
about it is you've got these not the students, they all love you, of course, because they're probably addicted to when's your next video going to get posted. But
Yeah.
even the old professors, they all the family members, it's great. But one of the things I wanted to get at, well, I'll start with the graduation speeches because you were such an inspiration, not just with
Mm.
humor, but your message. And this gets back to you as a couple and the tragedies you've been through. So you really, I think, got into this co-survivor story, and
Yeah.
uh, maybe Kristen, since you are the co-survivor of two bouts of Will's testicular cancer and then the sudden cardiac death, maybe, I mean, people don't talk about this much, so maybe you could help enlighten us.
Yeah. It's funny because the experience of being a co-survivor is nothing new. It's as long as we've had human beings, we've had co-survivors. But the concept around it and giving it a name and a label, a framework to be able to think about it, that is what I think is new and what people haven't talked about before. So co-survivor is just this idea that when a medical trauma happens to a patient, the patient has their experience, and if they survive it, they are a survivor and they have a survivor experience. And also, if most people are closely attached to at least one other person, if not many, and those people are co-surviving the medical event along with the survivor. That event is happening in their lives as was happening to them too, right? If someone comes in with a patient to the hospital, that person, just you can just assume by default that their lives are pretty intimately or profoundly intertwined, or else why would that person be there? And so thinking of it as there's the patient and then there's also kind of a co-patient, right? That family members in the past have only been thought of as like caregivers, if they've been thought of at all. And that is certainly one aspect of the role, but it's important to remember that whatever it is that's happening to the patient is also affecting the family members' lives in a really, deep and profound way.
That's really helpful. Now, the fact that you recognize that in your graduation speech, Will, I think is somewhat unique. And of course, some of
Yeah.
the other things that you touched on, like playing to your creativity and the human
Yes.
factors. I mean, these are so important messages.
Well, I
But
have to, in the discussion about co-survivorship, and when, because I talk about that whenever I do my keynotes and when I do the commencement addresses, but all credit goes to Kristen for really being the driving force of this idea for me and for many others, because as a physician, we take care of patients. Our focus is always on the patient, and it really wasn't until this happened to me and my family, and Kristen in particular, that I started to understand exactly what she's talking about, and this idea. And so, Kristen gets a lot of credit for just really bringing that term and that idea to the forefront.
yeah, well, you saved his life. It's just not many
She gets a
couples
lot of credit.
have that bond. And then the other thing I just want to mention, you've been recognized by the American Heart Association and a whole bunch of other
Mm.
organizations, awarded because of your advocacy for CPR. And you even mentioned that, I think, in one of your commencement addresses about.
Yeah, I tried to get the crowd to do CPR, like team up, partner up, and it kind of fell flat. Wasn't quite the right time, I think, to try to do a mass class on CPR. So yeah, maybe next time.
Right. Well, so you had this foundation with the Glaucomflecken General Hospital and taking on 37 specialties and all these incredible people that became, part of the family, if you will, of a spoof on medicine and your
Yep.
alter ego. And these videos that you would do, and sometimes you have 3 or 4 different alter egos in there playing out. Um, but now you've branched into new things.
Hmm.
So one, which is an outgrowth of what we were just talking about, you've been on this country tour, Wife and
That's
Death.
right. Yes,
Yes.
Wife
that's
and
right.
Death. I mean, yeah, I guess we can make the connect of how you named it that, but what is it? You've been selling out in cities all over the country. And by the way, I'm really upset you haven't come to San Diego, but tell
I
us about
know.
Wife and Death.
Yeah, well, because we have this amazing story, and all these medical challenges we've been through, and then developing the Glaucomflecken brand and universe, and we've done keynotes together for years, and then we thought, let's let's have more fun with it. Let's do, keynotes, they're great, like we can get our message out, but sometimes they're just a bit stuffy.
Hmm.
It's an academic environment. And
They're
so
usually at like 7 in the morning
yeah.
also. So that's, the
so
downside.
so we thought, let's just put together our own live show. Let's put together something that, like, we could just creatively, we can do whatever we want with it. I could dress up as characters. Kristin can, who's has these beautiful writing and monologues that she's put together around her experience, and just to to create something that people can come into a theater and just experience this wide range of emotions, from just laughter to tears of all kinds, and just have them, feel the story and enjoy the story. And fortunately it has a happy ending because I'm still alive. And it's been so much fun. The audiences have been incredible, mostly healthcare, but even some non-healthcare people show up.
Yep.
And I just we've been blown away by the response. We honestly, we should have done bigger theaters. That's our lesson for the first go round.
I saw you had to do a second show in Pittsburgh.
We did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That one
Pittsburgh.
sold out too. They were something about Pittsburgh. There were that was a good crowd and there was a lot of them.
It was almost like in Pittsburgh, they rarely ever get any internet comedian ophthalmologists that come through. I don't know. It's
Well, I see you got some still to come in Denver and Chicago. This
yeah,
is amazing. And I wondered who was coming. And I mean, it's not at all surprising that there'd be this phenomenal popularity. And I just, so that's one thing you've done that's new,
yes.
which is amazing. And of course, it's a multidimensional story. The one that shocked me, I have to tell you, shocked me,
Mm.
was the New England Journal partnership. The New England Journal is the most stodgy, arrogant. I mean, so difficult. And not only that,
You said that, not us.
yeah, yeah, they'll get this too. They know we don't get along that well, but
Uh-oh.
that's okay. You even made fun of journals. You even
Oh
made
yeah.
fun of
Yeah.
them. Yeah,
Yeah.
and now you're partnering with the New England Journal, God's greatest medical journal, whatever. Tell us about that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
wow.
Well, so, one thing that I really enjoy doing, and I've done it with my US healthcare system content, is almost like tricking people into learning things. And so, if you make something funny, then people will actually sit there and listen to what you have to say about deductibles and physician-owned hospitals and and all these, like, inner workings, DIR fees and pharmacy, all these things that are really dry topics. But if you can make them funny, all of a sudden people will actually, like, learn and listen to it. And the New England Journal of Medicine, they approached me with an idea, basically just to take one or two of their trials per month, and I just make a skit out of that trial, with the idea being to help disseminate some of the research findings that are out there, because I guess it's getting harder and harder for people to actually, like, to sit down and read a journal article, right? And so I have to credit them for having this idea and thinking outside the box of a different way to get medical information and knowledge out to the masses. And you're absolutely right that I have been critical of journals, and in particular, I've been critical of the predatory nature of some of the larger journals out there, like Elsevier. I've specifically named Elsevier, Springer, these journals that have a 40% profit margin. And I certainly thought about that whenever I whenever I was, looking into this partnership. And and the reason I was okay with doing it with the New England Journal is because they do have a little bit. They're a nonprofit, first of all, so they're run by the Massachusetts uh, Medical Society. That's the publisher for that journal. And so uh, I feel okay partnering with them because I feel like they're doing it in a much better way than some of the bigger journal corporations out there.
Well, and also part of the deal that we negotiated was that those, articles that you make skits about, those will be available open access.
Oh yeah,
So
that was a prerequisite. Yes, I was like, if I'm going to do this, the articles that I'm talking about need to be free and readily available to
Yeah,
everyone.
well,
So
I
that's part of it.
I think you've done about 5 already, something like that, and I watched them, and I just was blown away. I mean, the one that got me where I just, rolling on the floor, this one, the Balatinib mafodotin for the multiple myeloma. And when you were going on about the bortezomib, I will link to this, dexamethasone or daratumumab or dexamethasone. I said, "Oh my God."
Okay, let's get started on rounds. Med student, would you like to begin? Sure. We have a 50-year-old male with refractory multiple myeloma. You don't say. There was a recent trial in the New England Journal of Medicine that fits this situation perfectly. You know what that means. No, what? Impromptu journal club in the middle of rounds. Phil, fix your face. Now, as we all know, second-line treatments are desperately needed for multiple myeloma. So this trial evaluated the efficacy of everybody's favorite antibody-drug conjugate targeting B-cell maturation antigen. Belantamab mafodotin. Oh, is that like Lord of the Rings? 494 patients with relapsed or refractory multiple myeloma were randomly assigned to receive either belantamab mafodotin, bortezomib and dexamethasone, or daratumumab, bortezomib and dexamethasone. Attention! Code stroke. Oncology floor. That's us. Do we need to respond? No, that's my fault. When you say too many chemotherapeutic medications at one time, people think you're exhibiting stroke-like symptoms. False alarm, everybody. Everything's fine. Anyway, they found at a follow-up of 28 months, progression-free survival was significantly longer in the belantamab group. Huh, that's interesting. Hey, by the way, what is the ophthalmologist doing here? Oh, the belantamab group had a higher incidence of ocular adverse events like dry eye and blurry vision. Poor guy. He's seen a 3,000% increase in inpatient consults.
This
Yeah, the joke there is you is you don't have any idea how long it took me to like say those things that quickly. And so I was writing this skit and I'm like wouldn't it be funny if somehow that triggered a code stroke in the hospital because this person is saying all these random words that don't have any meaning to anybody. Um man, I tell you I am learning, like, why would I ever need to know any of this information as an ophthalmologist? So, like, it's great. Like, I know all this random stuff about multiple myeloma that I probably would never have learned otherwise.
it's
And
the only
so,
way that you won't read a journal either.
Well, yeah, and if you read the comments on the post, these doctors saying this is the only way they want to get journal information from now on. I mean,
which is, double-edged sword, maybe a little bit. Like, obviously, in a 90-second skit, there's no way like I'm going to cover the ins and outs of a major trial, right? So it's really in a lot of ways it's basically like I call it a comedy abstract because I'm not going much further than an abstract, but hopefully people that are actually interested in the topic can have their interest piqued and want to read more about it. That's kind of the idea.
yeah, well, they're phenomenal. We'll link to them. People will enjoy them, I know, because I sure did. And
Thank you.
to neck the place for stroke and
Oh
all the
yeah,
things that you've
yeah.
done. Oh, they're just phenomenal. I have to
Every
say.
2 weeks, we come out with a new one.
Wow. And that is basically between the fact that you are now on the commencement circuit of the top medical schools and doing New England Journal videos on their articles, that you've crossed the line from just making fun of insurance companies and doctors of specialties to
Oh, he
you
has crossed many lines, Dr. Topol.
Oh
yeah.
yeah,
Oh yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, this
I'm
one
sur-
now you've done it really. Now
yeah,
back 2 years ago when we convened, actually it's almost three, but
yeah.
we said when's it going to be your next Netflix special?
Oh
Is
gosh,
that in the
yeah.
works now?
Well, I'll tell you what's in the works
Do you know
now
anyone at
is
Netflix?
no, we're working on an animated series.
Oh wow, wow.
Yeah. all these characters, it's like basically just this fictional hospital, and they're all these characters are very cartoonish. The
Yeah.
emergency physician that wears the bike helmet and everything. So it's like, oh, this what do we have together? What do we Kristen and I have time for? And it wasn't like moving to LA and trying to like make a live action with actors and do it all, which is something we probably could have tried to do. So instead, we were like, let's just do an animated series.
Let's have someone else do the work and
so
draw us.
so we've been, we've worked with a writer for the first time, which was a fun process, and putting together a few scripts, and then also an animator. We learned a lot about that process. Kristen and I are doing the voiceovers,
Wow.
and
Wow.
it's in process.
We're
We'll
the
see.
only actors we could afford. So
That's right. Exactly. That's right.
I can't wait to see it. And when will it get out there?
Well, we're hoping to be able to put it out on our YouTube channel
And the reason
sometime early next year. So, January, February, somewhere around there. And then we can't fund the whole thing ourselves.
Yeah.
So the idea is that we do these like this pilot episode, and then we'll see what kind of interest we can generate
Well,
from it.
there will be interest. I am absolutely assured of that. Wow.
Let us know if you know anybody at the Cartoon Network.
yeah, we're open to possibilities
whatever.
here.
Discovery Channel. I don't know.
No, you've gotten to a point now where you're ready for the bigger things, even because you're the funniest physician couple in medicine today.
Well, that's a very low bar, but thank you.
There are some funny ones out there, but yeah, I appreciate that.
Well, I'm a really big comedy fan. Every night I watch the night before, since I'm old now, but of Colbert and Jimmy Kimmel, just to hear their monologues, and used to be Trevor Noah too. And I can appreciate humor. I'll go to see Montelesco or Jim Gaffigan, or
Sure.
And that was one of the things I was going to ask you about, because when you do these videos, you don't have an audience.
Oh yeah,
You're making it as opposed to when you are doing your live shows and commencement addresses and things like that. What's the difference when you're trying to be humorous and you have no audience there?
Mm. Well, it's whenever I'm filming a skit, it's just all production. In fact, I feel like it's funny. I think it's funny, but it's really not until I see the response to it, or I show Kristen, or like what I have is like where I really know if it's going to work. And it's great to put the content out there and see the responses, but there's nothing like live interaction. And that's why I keep coming back to performing. And Kristen's been a performer too in her life.
Yeah.
And I think we both really enjoy just the personal interaction, the close interaction, the response from people to our story.
Yeah, we do most of our work alone in this room. Like, I do a lot of writing. He does a lot of, playing
Dress up.
all the people in his head. And, we do that very isolated. And so it's very lovely to be able to actually like put, names to faces, or just see human bodies instead of just comments on YouTube.
Meet people.
It's really nice. Yeah.
We've been doing meet and greets at the live shows, and seeing people come up wearing their costumes and
oh wow.
And talking about, some of them talk about how they tell us their own stories about their own healthcare, and talk about how the videos help them get through, certain parts of the pandemic or a difficult time in their life. And so it reinforces like that. So this means something to a lot of people.
Yeah, it's been really fun for me, and probably you too, but to get to see the joy that he has brought so many people. That's really fun to see, in person, especially.
No question. Now, when you're producing it together, do you ever just start breaking into laughter because it's just you know how funny this is, or is it just you're on kind of a mission to get it done?
Well, the skits I do by myself, and sometimes when I'm writing out the skit. When I'm writing the skit itself, I will laugh at myself sometimes. Not often, but like sometimes I'm like, oh, I know that like that's really funny. Like I just wrote a skit that I'm actually going to be debuting. I'm speaking at the American Association of PM&R, so the big PM&R conference. I'm writing a skit. It's how to ace your PM&R residency interview. So I was writing up that skit today and kind of chuckling to myself. So sometimes that happens, but whenever we do our podcast together, like we definitely have outtakes.
Oh
So
yeah, we've got
Oh,
some,
we
some
crack each
pretty.
other up.
We do, yeah.
Sometimes when we're getting a little punchy toward the end of the day, you know.
and how is the Knock Knock High podcast going?
It's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a
You're-
really fun project.
We still enjoy, you can work with your spouse and in close proximity and still be happily married. So it's doable, everyone.
That's right. Yeah, and we're in that phase of life that's really busy. We've got kids, we've got a gazillion jobs,
Yeah.
house, my parents are around, and so it's like the only time all week that we actually get to sit down and talk to each other.
Yeah.
So it's actually kind of like,
Yeah.
a
We're
part
happy.
of our marriage at this point.
We're happy to involve the public in
That's
in our
right.
conversations. And but we couldn't do it because we have all these things going on, all our hands in all these little places. We can't do it without a team.
Yeah,
Yeah.
And that's the thing that I've learned, because I've always been a very loner type content creator. I just want to do it all myself. It's in my head, and I have trouble telling others, describing what's in my head. And Kristin and our producers have helped me to be able to kind of give a little bit of control to others who are really good at what they do. And that's really the only way that we've been able to venture out into all these different things we've talked about.
Well, I think it comes down to, besides your ability to make people, you get to people in terms of their laughter receptors, you have this incisive observer capability. And that's one of the things I can't fathom, because when you can understand the nuances of each specialty or of each part of healthcare, and you haven't necessarily interacted with these specialists, or at least in recent years, but you nail it. You nail it every time. I don't know how you do it, really. That observational, is that a central quality of a comedian, you think?
There's definitely a big part of that, because you got to get the content from somewhere. But for the specialties, it's really first about just getting the personalities down. And that doesn't change over time.
Or around the world.
We hear from people from all over the world about, oh, it's the same in Guatemala as it is in the US.
Surgeons are the same.
Yeah.
Emergency is the same.
Which has been really cool to see. But, so I draw on my experience interacting with all these specialties back in my med school and intern days. You're right. As an ophthalmologist, we don't get out very much.
No.
Right. So very few people have ever seen an ophthalmologist. We do exist. But then beyond that, yeah, I do have to include some actual like medical things. And so I do a lot of research. I find myself learning more about other fields sometimes than I do my own field. So especially the further out I get from med school, I know less and less.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking, but you're always spot on. It's interesting to get that global perspective from both of you. Now, you're still doing surgery and practicing ophthalmology. Have you reduced it because this has just been taken off so much more over the recent years, or keeping it the same?
Nope. No, I'm still.
Do you know how many years I had to come along on all of this medical training? He is not allowed to give this up.
I know there's something called the sunk cost fallacy, but this is no fallacy. There's enough of a sunk cost. I got to stick with it. No, I still enjoy it. That's the thing. It's still, it actually, it informs my comedy. It grounds me. All of the social media stuff is built upon this medical foundation that I have. And if I stopped practicing, I guess I could maybe cut back, but I'm not planning on doing that. if I stop practicing medicine, I feel like it would make my content less
Authentic.
authentic. Yeah, that's a good way
Yeah,
to put
yeah.
it.
No, that makes a lot of sense. No, it's great you can get that balance with all the things you're doing. I
And if
mean,
I stop practicing medicine, they're not going to invite me to any more commencement addresses, Dr. Topol. So I
well,
gotta draw the line somewhere.
it's one of those statements you made at some point earlier was it was easier to go to become a doctor than to try to be a comedian. And yeah, I mean,
It's
you've
true.
proven.
A lot of ways, that's true.
Wow. I just am pretty awestruck about the rarefied talent that you bring and what you both have done for medicine today. And the thing is, you're so young. You have so much, time ahead to
You hear
keep
that?
having an impact.
You hear that, Kristen? We're young. Look at that.
That's getting less and less true.
Kristen
Oh,
she just turned 40.
I did.
It's right around the corner for me. So I don't know. But
well, I just, you're
we
you're
got some
like
years left.
you're like young puppies. Are you kidding? You're just getting started. But no, I think that what you brought to medicine in terms of comedy, there's no other entity, no person or people like that you have done. And just the last thing I want to ask you about is you have a platform for advocacy. You've been doing that. We talked about co-survivor. We talked about nurturing the human qualities in physicians like creativity.
Uh-huh.
Um, and also, taking on the insurance companies, which are just monstrous. I'll link a couple of those, but the
Yeah.
brain MRI one, the Texaco.
Texaco Mike.
United Prior Authorizations, how can I help you today? Hi, yeah, I'm trying to get a brain MRI approved for a patient. Oh, I'm sorry, we're not going to be able to do that. What? I haven't even told you about the patient yet. Well, we always say that at the beginning of every prior authorization, hoping that you'll give up immediately. So, you give up? No. Okay, what did you say you want? Some kind of picture? An MRI of the brain. I have a patient who might have a tumor. Oh, hold on. Have you thought about an x-ray first? Excuse me? Yeah, according to the United Healthcare How to Practice Medicine pamphlet, an x-ray is cheaper and therefore better. An x-ray is for bones. Huh? It's not what you think. There are no bones in the brain. We need an MRI. Have you explored other diagnostic modalities like palpation? You can't palpate a brain tumor. It's surrounded by a skull. Huh. I thought you said there were no bones in the brain. We're not going to get very far if you're not honest with me. Listen, the patient has headaches and hemiparesis. Well, why didn't you say so? Okay, thank you. Now we're getting some. We'll need 6 weeks of PT before we can approve an MRI. What? You never know. Maybe some leg lifts will improve the paralysis. Okay, I'm going to need your name and your supervisor's phone number. Okay. I'll approve your patient's MRI. Great. So I can call the hospital and get it scheduled? Oh, no. You can't do it at the hospital. Why not? Hospital charges us way too much. Now, there's a facility about 150 miles south of you. Patient needs to go there. Are you serious? Oh yeah, there's a guy down there, bought himself an MRI. It's in the back of a Texaco. Just knock on the door, ask for Mike. But the hospital's a block away. Listen, do you want your patient to get an MRI or not? Yeah. Then you send them to see Texaco Mike. And they'll be able to get an MRI? Yeah. Kinda. Wait, what does that mean? Well, the patient's plan only approves a walk-by. What is that? The patient just walks briskly past the MRI machine and Texaco Mike just gets whatever images he can. Also, your patient hasn't met their deductible, so this will be out of pocket.
Yeah, that one's amazing. But there's so many. I mean, you've just taken them apart, and they deserve every bit of it.
Yeah.
Do you have any other targets for advocacy, or is that just kind of come up as things go?
It kind of comes up as things go. There's things I keep harping on. The prior authorization reform, which I've helped in a couple different states. There's a lot of good people around the country like doing really good work on prior authorization and reforming that whole process. And I've been able to just play a small part in that in a couple different ways, and it's been really fun to do that. And so I do plan on continuing that crusade, as it were. There's certain things I'd like to see. I've been learning more about what pharmacists are dealing with as well as a
Mm.
physician, because that's unfortunately we are very separate in a lot of ways in just how we come up in medicine. And so I have had my eyes opened a lot to what community pharmacists are dealing with, for all the terrible things that we have to deal with as physicians in the healthcare system. Pharmacists have just as much, if not more, of the things that they're doing that are threatening their livelihoods. And so I'd love to see some more reform on the PBM side of things. Pharmacy benefit managers, Caremark, Optum, all of them, they're causing lots of problems. So
I couldn't agree with you more. In fact,
yeah.
I'm going to have Mark Cuban on in a few weeks, and we're going to get into that. But the pharmacists get abused by these
Oh, it's
chains.
bad. It's really bad.
Horrible,
Yeah.
horrible. I feel, and every time I'm in a drugstore working with one of them, I just think what a tough life they have to deal with.
The
So I'm
I
glad
guess
you're on
the
that.
I guess from an advocacy standpoint, the good news is that there's never a shortage of terrible injustices that are being foisted upon the public and physicians and healthcare workers,
Yes. The US healthcare
with our
system
healthcare
is
system.
ripe for advocacy.
Yes, so that's a lesson that I tell people too, and especially the med students coming up, is like there's work to be done, and get in touch with your state societies, and there's always work to be done.
Now, you've stayed clear of politics, totally clear, right?
Yeah, for the
Um,
most part, yeah, yeah. I
is
mean,
that
it
is that
depends on
because
what
don't
you
mess with
consider
it?
politics. It depends
Well,
on what you consider politics.
it being election day, you haven't made any
Yeah,
endorsements,
I I I haven't, and I don't know. I don't.
Love.
I can only handle so much. I've got my things that I really care about. Of course, I'm voting, but um, you know, I want to talk on the things that I feel like I have the expertise to talk about,
right?
and I think there's nothing wrong with that. Everybody can't have an opinion on everything, and it
Right.
it it means something. So I am happy to discuss the things that I have expertise about, and I'm
Love.
always on the side of the patient and wanting to make life better for our patients, and that's the side I'm on.
I think also it's, he never comes out and explicitly touches on certain topics, but it's not hard to tell where he falls. Like,
I mean,
you know,
if you really want to read into it
if
all, but
yeah,
yeah,
I,
it's not like it's a big secret. It's just
I
like,
thought I thought that too. I'm glad you mentioned it, Kristen. I mean, but it doesn't come out wide open. But yeah, it's inferred for sure. And I
yeah,
think the point being there is that because you have a reach that's I think there's no reach that has 4 million plus people by your posts and no less the tours and keynotes and everything else. So you could go anywhere, but sticking to where you're well grounded, it makes a lot of sense. And anyway, I'm going to be staying tuned. This is our 2-year checkup. I'm hoping you're going to come to San Diego for your next tour.
oh
we're
yeah.
working on 2025 plans.
Oh, we
So,
got we got more shows coming up, and we'll
Yeah,
we'll hit up other parts of the country too.
because I feel like I got to meet you in person, give you a hug or something.
Sure.
I just feel like I'm missing out there. But it's just a joy to have had a chance to work with you on your podcast, and thanks for coming
Yeah.
back on one of mine.
Anytime.
There's lots of podcasts out there, but I mean, having you and being joining you is such fun. So thank you.
Oh, this has been great. Thank you for
yeah,
having
thank
us.
you.